Hi guys. uh, Sorry about that. Uh, okay, so first things first. Today in history. Let me get to it. Got too many windows open on this thing. Origin of Species is published. On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, a groundbreaking scientific work by British naturalist Charles Darwin, is published in England. Darwin's theory argued that organisms gradually evolve through a process he called natural selection. In natural selection, organisms with genetic variations that suit their environment tend to propagate more descendants than organisms of the same species that lack the variation, thus influencing the overall genetic makeup of the species. Darwin, who was influenced by the work of French naturalist Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck and the English economist Thomas Malthus, acquired most of the evidence for his theory during a 5-year surveying expedition aboard the HMS Beagle in the 1830s, visiting such diverse places as the Galapagos Islands and New Zealand. Darwin acquired an intimate knowledge of the flora, fauna, and geology of many lands. This information, along with his studies in variation and interbreeding after returning to England, proved invaluable in the development of his theory of organic evolution. The idea of organic evolution was not new. It had been suggested earlier by, among others, Darwin's grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, a distinguished English scientist, and Lamarck, who in the early 19th century drew the first evolutionary diagram, a ladder leading from one-celled organisms to man. However, it was not until Darwin that science presented a practical explanation for the phenomenon of evolution. I want to insert in here, this is not in this section, but I want to insert that Lamarck actually made a case for acquired characteristics being passed down. In other words, say a giraffe can't reach the leaves of a tree, so the neck gets longer during his lifetime, and that gets passed. This is not that. This is where there is a genetic mutation or variation, and that makes it more favorable for the organism to survive in that particular environment. And it is that, the genetic variation, that gets passed down, not acquired characteristics. And also, while I'm on the subject, I may say, Kent Hovind, this blows your argument about, oh, he found different beaks on the islands of the Galapagos. No, he didn't. He did. He went to Galapagos, he went to New Zealand, he went to different areas of the world, plus he did other experiments when he got home. So please stop using that friggin' argument. It's quite frankly irritating. And you're a liar, and I don't know why people follow you. The idea of, okay, going on with the article. Darwin had formulated his theory of natural selection by 1844, but he was wary to reveal his thesis to the public because it so obviously contradicted the biblical account of creation. So here we go with religion standing in the way of scientific progress. Are we really that surprised? In 1858, with Darwin still remaining silent about his findings, the British naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace independently published a paper that essentially summarized his theory. Darwin and Wallace gave a joint lecture on evolution before the Linnean Society of London in July 1858, and Darwin prepared on the origin of species by means of natural selection for publication. Published on November 24th, 1859, Origin of Species sold out immediately. Most scientists quickly embraced the theory that solved so many puzzles of biological science. You hear that, Kent? But Orthodox Christians condemned the work as heresy, because of course they would. Why wouldn't they? Controversy over Darwin's ideas deepened with the publication of The Descent of Man and Selection in Relation to Sex, that was published in 1871, in which he presented evidence of man's evolution from apes. We're still apes. Okay, we are still apes. I don't care what you Christians think about that, we're still apes. By the time of Darwin's death in 1882, his theory of evolution was generally accepted. In honor of his scientific work, he was buried in Westminster Abbey beside kings, queens, and other illustrious figures from British history. Subsequent developments in genetics and molecular biology led to modifications in accepted evolutionary theory, but Darwin's ideas remain central to the field. So, no, Kent, we didn't just make this stuff up. I wish you'd get that through your head, but you won't. Maybe your followers will. Now on to the Bible. And today's text is Romans 9, verses 10 through 24. And it's about predestination. Christians, I'm sorry, but predestination's in the Bible. You just have to accept it. Verse 10, not only that, but Rebekah's children were conceived at the same time by our father Isaac. Yet before the twins were born, or had done anything good or bad, in order that God's purpose in election might stand, not by works, but by him who calls, she was told, the older will serve the younger, just as it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. What then shall we say? Is God unjust? Yes, he is. That's my answer. Let's see what Paul answers himself. Not at all. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. Then it's not free will, is it? It's not. Moving on. Verse 16. It does not, therefore, depend on human desire or effort but on God's mercy. Now, just back that up. Back that up. It does not, therefore, depend on human desire or effort, but on God's mercy. Now, when I was a Christian, this made me feel great because it meant that it didn't matter how many times I messed up, that God was going to forgive me because I had the right attitude. At least that's what I thought it meant. But go back to verse 14. I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. And then it says, it does not, therefore, depend on human desire. Human desire. It does not depend on whether I desire to serve God or not. It does not depend on that or effort, but on God's mercy. So apparently, having been a Christian all of my life up until about 2 years ago, somewhere around in there, I don't know, it's back in my videos, apparently, after all that time of being brainwashed and finally coming out of it and having a mind to think, it's not my fault that I'm not convinced. Verse 17. For Scripture says to Pharaoh, I raised you up for this very purpose, that I might display my power in you, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. Okay, stop right there. So, wait a minute. The Exodus didn't happen, okay? So let's get that straight. But let's pretend the Exodus did happen. And let's pretend that God did drown all of Pharaoh's armies after he made all the 10 plagues on Egypt. So, okay. So, he raised up Pharaoh for the express purpose of punishing Egypt with 10 plagues. Now remember, Pharaoh doesn't have a choice in this. God hardened his heart, says so in Exodus, which I'll get to. And then he drowns the army. Hi, phony Beatles maniac. That does not sound like a fair God to me. Therefore, God has mercy on whom he wants to have mercy, and he hardens whom he wants to harden. Again, this is not free will. I have no choice, apparently, according to this, I have no free choice as to whether or not the bullshit in the Bible is going to make me change my mind. Okay, where was I? Verse 19. One of you will say to me, then why does God still blame us? Yes, I agree. Why does God still blame us? For who is able to resist his will? If you believe in God, yeah. Because he says, nobody can resist my will. So why are you blaming us for something that you already determined before we were born was going to happen? Verse 20, but who are you, a human being, to talk back to God? Shall what is formed say to the one formed, it, why did you make me like this? Does not the potter have the right to make out of the same lump of clay some pottery for special uses and some for common use? Okay, let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. We are not pottery. We are human beings. And Genesis says we are made in the image of God. So why is Paul comparing us to inanimate pottery? Pottery can't talk back. Obviously, I'd lose my friggin' mind if pottery talked back to me. Hey, Nathan Artwork, I would lose my friggin' mind if pottery talked back to me. We're not talking about the same thing, people. People are different than pottery. People can sass God all they want, and like I said, I don't believe in the Christian God, so this is nonsense to me. But yeah, I mean, if you believe that, then you can sass God all you want, because obviously God made you to destroy you. It says so. Here, in black and white, in your own friggin' Bible. Moving on. Verse 22. What if God, although choosing to show his wrath and make his power known, bore with great patience the objects of his wrath, prepared for destruction? Does it matter? He's the one that made them. Why should it matter if he bore with great patience the stuff that he made for destruction when he could very well have not made it to begin with? Okay? He didn't have to create me, who says the evidence for the biblical God is not there, and not only that, but it's contradictory. He did not have to make me. He did not have to make any other atheist. Okay? He did not have to do that. But he did that. And his express purpose in doing that, he tells us right here, so I can destroy you. Christians, you serve one messed up God. Verse 23. What if he did this to make the riches of his glory known to the objects of his mercy, whom he prepared in advance for his glory, even us, whom he also called, not only from the Jews, but also from the Gentiles? That's the end of verse 24. So atheists who God has already said, you know, you're not worthy. I decided from the womb that you're not worthy. Okay? So now I'm going to be doing all of this so I can show my glorious power to the Christians whom I have chosen. Why? Why? If you are so powerful, it shouldn't matter. If you are so powerful of a God, it should be that your power is self-evident. Phony Beatles maniacs. I'm sorry. Uh, Not according to fundamentalists. I don't know what kind of Christian you are. If you are a Christian, um, I don't know that. But according to fundamentalists, this is his inspired word, and there is not a jot or a tittle that has not passed through his magical hands or whatever. So, yes, fundamentalists absolutely do believe Paul speaks for God. And I guess that's who I'm talking to. I'm not really talking to the moderates right here. I'm talking to um, the people like the Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, oh, Gary. Ah, okay. All right. So uh, you're. Let me see if I can remember correctly. You're, you're an independent worshiper, correct? You don't worship a specific way, if I remember correctly. Thank you for um, clearing that up for me. Okay, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. Um, oh, you're a Quaker. Okay, so I don't know about Quakers, um, but from what you've told me or what I've heard you talk about from Knox Room, is they are not fundamentalists, at least in the the aspect that most fundamentalists are. When I'm talking about fundamentalists, I'm talking about people like the Jehovah's Witnesses, like the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church, like the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church, like the Westboro Baptist Church. Uh, those are what I mean by the fundamentalists. And I was a fundamentalist at one time, and I can say they do believe wholeheartedly that every single um, word in the Bible is inspired of God. And, so the fundamentalists absolutely do believe that Paul spoke for God. Hey, Purple. So, anyway, Purple, you would have just loved it. I just went on a rant about predestination. You'll have to watch it. It's funny. I didn't mean to go that far, but you know. Anyway. But yeah. Gary, you'll have to tell me more about Quakers, if you don't mind. I know they go back a ways. 1800s, I believe, if I'm correct on that. But I haven't really looked into them. But okay. So anyway, can you? Okay, just for clarification, can you tell me what you mean by God providence as opposed to speaking for God directly? So, just so I'm clear on that, because I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about with God providence. Yeah, Purple. I don't see that they hurt many people. I mean, it's not like the Jehovah's Witnesses with their blood policy and their shunning policy and their, I don't want to get too monetized. I'm just going to say their abuse problem that they still have not addressed. As in spreading the word and answering questions, not necessarily being a prophet or being a vessel. Okay, okay, all right. I I can accept that um, from you, Gary. So you're not. So basically, what you're saying is you are not a fundamentalist because a fundamentalist would say Paul speaks for God. So that's fine. Um, and purple rhymes with orange. I just found out that Phony Beetle Maniacs is Gary from Knox Room. So, so be nice to him. He's respectful, you know. Um, and I really do appreciate you coming over here and, engaging with me, Gary. It's nice. It's nice to have, you know, um, a Christian because I've been out of Christianity for 2 years now, and it's just like the further away I get from Christianity, the harder it is for me to understand being in that mind frame, and I don't know why. I have no idea why. It probably just has to do with time. I didn't think so, Gary. Not with your views. Not with your views, but I I very much appreciate your views on things. I really, really do, Gary. And I hope that you will continue coming and giving your views. Um, and, you know, um, I'm more than willing to learn from you. You know, um, I don't have a problem saying I don't know everything. So, anyway, yeah, purple, me too. It's just sometimes with some of the bullshit in the Bible, sometimes I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, phony Beatlemaniacs, or Gary, if you prefer, um, you may have a different spin on the Bible, and I don't mind that. You know, I don't mind that you have a different spin on it. But um, if you read the Bible like it is, you know, you can't help but come to some of these conclusions, and I understand. I'm, I'm like 6 credits away from a major in anthropology. I quit so I could go to um, master's school. But I'm 6 credits away from anthropology, so I know culture has a lot to do with it. And no, um, I'm not very familiar with the Roman culture of the time because it seems that Paul was more Roman than he was Jew, even though he was both. Okay, Purple. Night. So I will see you guys later. Thanks for coming.